everybody. Welcome back to the Battlefield Banter podcast. I'm your host, Cody Black, and I'm here with the Big John Sutton. Hey, we just want to give a big shout out to everybody that tuned in for the first episode. Looks like we had about 405 views, which we were not expecting. I think John and I both had low expectations with this first one. We just put it out there to see where we was going to go, and we got a lot of great feedback. A lot of people calling my partner Big John Sutton Paul Harvey. So I mean, hey, that's exciting in itself. But I know we're pretty excited. And I just want to give another shout out to the Lone Star Drone Company in Texas. They reached out to us too and wanted to let us know we were doing awesome things. So hey, big shout out to those guys. So what'd you think, Big John? What kind of feedback you get?
It was so full disclosure, that was initially we didn't intend to release that episode as early as we did. There was obviously some editing errors and it was unfinished product. But we were having some difficulties getting a select few folks that we wanted to be able to watch it, to be able to kind of screen it and give us some reviews. So we said, screw it, and just made it public and let everybody dive in and take a look at it and tear us up a little bit. But I thought it was good. There are a lot of lessons to be learned. So we'll apply that feedback and work on our editing skills for this next video.
I'll tell you what, man, out of all the feedback I got, I think it was from my kids, out of all people. They thought it was absolutely hilarious that their dad was on here with Big John making a podcast. They probably, watched that thing twice themselves, laughing their butts off at us. So, I mean, I guess if they thought it was good, we're all right,
Yeah, and I guess we should just kind of manage, I want to say, expectations of kind of what to expect or the direction we're kind of hoping to go. If you did see the first video, we had Cody's brother, Corey, on and did an interview with him. It was largely the basis of the video. But we would like to kind of break this thing out a little bit with some more interaction. Down below in the video description, we're going to have a link to our email address, which is battlefieldbanterpodcast@gmail.com. We encourage anybody to send an email with a story that you'd like for us to share, or record a video that you're okay with us sharing. If you're not okay with us sharing and you just want us to kind of relay that message across the video and talk about the experience, just make sure you let us know in that video. But please hit us up and share those experiences with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, John. I mean, John's already been sharing some experiences of our own at work. Somehow he circulated a picture of me dressed in an elf costume at one of the Christmas parties. He failed to show them the picture of him dressed as Santa Claus, but we'll see if we can dig one of them bad boys up and show
There is no picture. There is no picture.
There's no picture. Oh, crap. I remember, I think around that same year we had that Halloween party, and a guy by the name of Lieutenant Denny. What was his first name? You remember his first name?
John?
Yeah, John Denny, Lieutenant John Denny. We all had to dress up as some sort of character here.
Santa's little helpers.
But during Halloween, old John Denny decided to dress as like Superman, and he ordered an extra small Superman outfit. And let's just say there was, some low hanging fruit showing at the Halloween party. Oh shoot! Yeah. Oh, what a great time that was. So matter of fact, I had one of those lieutenants reach out to me wanting to come on. So,
I talked to Denny. Yeah, I talked to Denny. Not that maybe it's been a year or two ago, but he is living in the St. Louis area here, close to me. So, I think we ought to get the Morrises and Denny on. Get them on 100%. Together for an episode.
100%. And going back to kind of our podcast here, man. I think this is a great way for us to stay connected with people and meet new people. Through the Army, that is one thing we are terrible at. Is once we leave a unit, staying in contact and just keeping some of the stuff alive.
Yep. No.
So, hey, real excited here. We got our next guest coming on. retired CW3, Noee Hernandez. He did 20 years in the United States Army. His last job was in the Criminal Investigation Division. Really looking forward to his interview and what he's got to tell us.
Yep, should be good.
Hey guys, I tell you what, I am so flipping pumped up about this next guy. This guy is a retired CW3 with the Criminal Investigation Division. Jack Reacher could not carry this guy's jockstrap. Paul Brenner doesn't compare one iota to this guy. One of the greatest CID agents I ever met, Noee Hernandez. Hey, Noe, welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, so, retired CW3, just retired this past year. You did 20 years. Can you explain to us or tell the audience what you did throughout your time in the military? I know you did probably 2 different jobs, and just kind of explain to us what you did and all that great stuff.
Yeah, so I joined, I came into the military just a little over 18 years old. I was a high school teenager, parent. I had my son in high school my senior year and joined the military. I was in college when I met my recruiter, but you come out of high school and you're kind of looking for the next place to put your foot. So I started with the college and, wasn't really feeling it too much. I'd go to school and, I had my downtime and I just kind of wasn't having the best situation with the, baby mama at the time. And, the war was kicking off and I was looking for something else and just happened to run into a recruiter there on the campus. And he didn't actually target me to join the military. He actually asked me to give his card to, other people that weren't doing anything. And I was like, well, I ain't doing anything either. What I meant was, hey man, I got like an hour to spare between my next class. And it was downhill from there, man.
Yeah.
He pulled me off to the side. We took a practice ASVAB. I joined originally as back then a 77 Fox. I was a fuel handler, pumping gas, man. Pumping ain't easy, did a couple ground units, then I moved over to 4th Infantry Division and did Combat Aviation Brigade there. I very much enjoyed it, so I ended up re-enlisting. My original contract was for 2 years. I ended up re-enlisting after about a year or so, and I liked it. When I first joined, they offered me several jobs, but since I wanted a short contract, they kind of limited to combat arms and supplies, given the war at that time. And then, I picked up that 77 Fox, 92 Fox later, and then as I stayed in the military, I kind of liked it, and then, made it to the senior, or not the senior, but the NCO ranks, made it to E5, and I was like, oh, this might work out. But at that time, given the war, I was kind of locked into my job. They weren't really letting people reclass or anything like that. Went to PLDC or whatever they called it now, or at that time. And I met a CID agent, and so he told me about it, and he said it was an open MOS. You just had to fill in an application. So, put in an application, and I eventually got accepted after a few months into the CID program as a special agent, criminal investigator. So I did that for almost 16 years, and it's 20 years in the Army. They go by fast, but they are some dog years.
Yeah.
So where'd you grow up at? Where were you going to high school and college at?
So I'm originally from Houston, Texas. They're on the north side of town, kind of, not the greatest, not the worst, but definitely rough. Went to Aldine Senior High School. Kind of, I think it's changed over the time, but it was a 4-year high school like all the others, but we had a ninth grade center. I don't know how common those are throughout the country. You start out in the ninth grade center, it's a bunch of freshmen, 2-story big old building. And then by the time you graduate, it seems like only a handful. I mean, it's a couple hundred, but it's not the same as the starting class. So, yeah. So, grew up there in Houston, Texas, currently, living out of South Atlanta area in Georgia.
You're one of the only guys I think I've met that also came in on a 2-year active contract. I haven't come across many others. I know I did, and there was a couple in my class that did, but I haven't come across many others.
Oh, okay. What was your original job?
Military police.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'd probably, I didn't come in as military police. I would probably equate that along the lines of combat arms, so it was definitely, you want to be a tanker, infantry, panic crew member, or you can be a supply person and, do all this other stuff. But like, you want this high speed job over here that takes, 2 years to train in, got you, buddy. You're not going to be here long enough. So yeah, so I think after me, I had a couple of guys that I deployed with later, and some of them came in under like 18-month contracts, but they didn't start until after they graduated AIT. So I don't know the math if theirs was actually shorter than the 2 years, but mine was 2 years total.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think you're talking about like the reenlistment part. I think, and I'm gonna say this because I had a lot of guys reach out to me. But my first unit was the 194 MP company out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I don't think if I had gone to that unit right off the bat, I don't think I would have reenlisted. Those guys, I had great leadership, and those guys really took care of me and showed me what the Army was all about. So I think your first unit definitely plays a part in wanting to reenlist. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I could have asked for a better situation than what I've had with my first unit.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I mean, I've just like you guys, I'm sure, have met several people that have had that bad experience with their initial unit where they don't want to reenlist. And I had guys that looked out for me, and I didn't really feel that at my my initial unit. Very few throughout the time in my military either, but they always supported me, and so I felt welcomed and a part of the team, and so that it made it kind of easy to just be like, hey, let's do this, let's roll.
So CID, I know we've all probably watched episodes of NCIS. Is a average day in CID similar to what people are watching on NCIS?
No, man. So those are like the Super Bowls, Very few days, far and in between. You'll have those days where it's just, you come in ready to roll out, and everything is there's just gonna be a ton of action. Most days, it's a lot of administrative work. A lot of back and forth with people, coordinating with with fellow team members for what they did, back last week on something that, hey, they just haven't had a chance to get back down on paper. Calling the lawyers, talking with them, talking with the commanders, depending on the office and how big it is, it just, the bigger the office is, the more, I'll say drama, not in a negative sense, but, just the more drama there is to it. Like, somebody else did something, so now we got to have a meeting and talk about it, and this person is going to do this. So everybody needs to be briefed in on it. It's just, a lot of chaos, controlled chaos, but it's not the same as the television shows. They got an hour to get it in. They got 13 episodes, and then trying to get the ratings up to get that next season,
Yeah, that show was actually originally supposed to be called CID. They approached the Army about basing it off of CID, and the Army said, we don't need this.
No, we'd have been exposed.
Well, and I don't know how much of it is true, but yeah, I heard that it was originally pitched for CID, and then, in the grand scheme of things, we just couldn't let things be, and we had to put our finger in everything, and the guys were like, hey, never mind, guys, we're just going to change the name.
So so you guys were both in CID, kind of, what are some of the things that you guys typically see as far as cases?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this right now. I'm gonna put this out there. CID was the worst decision this guy's ever made in his life, right? And I'll tell you, if it hadn't been for this guy right here, I'd have probably been. I don't
You
know
point
if I'd
at
have
me,
made
or
it.
you point at you? Who made the
No,
bad
I'm
decision,
I'm
Cody?
pointing at you. If it hadn't been for him, I don't know if I'd have lasted 20 years. But I mean, I see cases, man. This guy saved me, and I don't know. I had this. I'll tell you this one story. Actually, I got two stories. I got three stories, really. Okay, we do not deal when it comes to special agents. Everybody says it's the cream of the crop. There's some people that are not nowhere close to the cream of the crop. But I've just taken over as team chief at Fort Bragg, and I get this call. Hey, this woman's at the hospital for sex assault or whatever. Right, so I'm on call. My team's on call. I go out there, and I get there, and this lady, she's drunk or whatever. Hey, I'm here. You got sexually assaulted. She says no. She starts screaming at me. No, like that. Whatever. And I said, okay. I said, well, then why are you here? She grabbed her pillow and she started going, because the coochie stinks. And threw the pillow at me, right? So I'm like, I'm done. Hands off, I'm done. I get up after the parking lot and I'm like, hey, Noee. I said, hey, nothing happened here. She said it didn't happen. He says, oh no. He's like, you gotta turn around, go back and work this case because she said it to somebody. And I mean, it was so stupid. That was the stuff we had to deal with that was just completely stupid. And then I got one other story about one of our agents. This guy, he was having problems in the unit. And he comes to me. I go to Noe after this. I'm like, dude, what do we have here? But this guy comes up to me. He's like, hey, I'm having financial problems. I start trying to help him out. Come to find out, like his wife was having an affair with another soldier or whatever. We're trying to figure all that out. So, like, me and another warrant officer, or she's a warrant officer now. We get together. We get him like some food for Thanksgiving, right? We're like, hey, this dude's in financial problem. We got to take care of him. So, boom, he goes. I tell him, hey, dude, have a good Thanksgiving. Let me know how everything goes. He comes back in after Thanksgiving. I said, hey, how was Thanksgiving? He said, wasn't good. Wasn't good at all. I said, what? I said, what do you mean it wasn't good at all? I said, do not tell me her boyfriend came over. He's like, yeah, he came over. He ate my turkey. And I had to watch the kid go through my turkey. Oh, man.
Man,
It's the agent that we had. I'm like, oh man, you gotta be
but
kidding.
you see, we have smart guys, right? And that particular agent, he was a good dude, man. I went out, we did some good stuff, but just like the rest of the military or the rest of
Yeah.
America, right? For the Army, it's a cross section of society. So
Yep.
the ID was the same thing. It was an application open to anybody so long as you met certain parameters. At the time, he happened to meet those parameters, and dude came in, and just like a lot of us, he came down on hard times, and
Yeah.
maybe we probably would have taken different approaches to it, but that's his story, man. And last we heard, me and Cody, we we helped the dude out, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was really close. He was really close to seeing the door out.
Yeah.
Back in the civilian society, not on good terms, not negative, but hey, man, you ain't cutting it. Time to go, right? And but Cody being that instrumental leader that he is, that Audie Murphy recipient there, he looked out for old dude, and he's like, no, man, we got to find something else for this dude. Let's do the right thing, and we got him reclassed, and I think I don't needless to say, his personal stuff didn't work out. Well, it worked out in his best interest that he moved on from it, but he started excelling in other areas of the military, and so I haven't heard out from him. But again, last we've heard is that things worked out better for him than when he was in the unit, because aside from the personal issues, or on top of the personal issues, it was affecting his work, and that's not good, right? So especially when you're in these types of professions, they have real world consequences. So it's not like, hey, I missed an oil change and we got to redo something. Like when you do something wrong in this world, like it has legal consequences, and people go to jail, people lose careers. So you can't have those types of mistakes.
I'll tell you, I was gonna say CID is, and I will tell you this from a leadership standpoint, CID is probably one of the hardest places to lead. Uh, just because each person is on their own different time schedule when it comes
Different
to
wavelength.
cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, so especially as a team chief or an ASAC, like Noe was, like, you're managing, not only are you managing the people, but you're managing, any given time, I had 60 to 75 cases on the team. And every one of those cases are different, and you're trying to review them, and you're trying to mentor and train the people that are under you still. And it's difficult. There have been many times when I probably went straight drill sergeant mode or ham. I know Noee Hernandez had to come in there and be like, yo, Blair, calm down, take a seat back. He's like, you don't even know what the hell you're doing. You're trying to yell at these guys.
You know, those are, I would assume, kind of drastically different worlds. Noe, as far as how was that transition from being a fueler to being a CID warrant officer?
Well, so my transition, as I was, because I was only like a little bit over 2 years in as a fueler.
Oh, okay.
I'm 85, and I was a team leader. I had a handful of soldiers that I was responsible for, squad leader and stuff like that. Not team leader, but squad leader and stuff, and that was my team. So I'd had some leadership experience in that role, and then when I went CID, I didn't go straight warrant, so I just transitioned over as an NCO. And luckily for me, unlike Cody, my first office was in Fort Huachuca, Arizona, right? Well, let me go back real quick. As I left being a fueler, I was a fueler over 4th Infantry Division, Fort Hood, Texas at the time, from a decent-sized platoon. So we had, our pretty decent-sized squads. Our company was pretty decent. I had a deployment with them. I had a little bit of soldiering time, and then I went CID, and then I went over to Fort Huachuca, Arizona as a case agent. And that office was small, maybe 5 to 8 people, right around that range, right, depending on who was there. 2, maybe 3 warrant officers, 1 senior NCO. So I had time to kind of learn how to be an agent, by myself, right? I wasn't responsible for that. And then, I progressed. I PCS back to Fort Hood. Now I knew what I was doing as an agent, and then I deployed with them again, enlisted. And then while I was enlisted, as I was coming back, that's whenever at that time, so I was married at that time. I was going through divorce during that deployment as a fueler, and came back, put in my packet, and got accepted to warrant officer school. So I had, but again, so from there where'd I go? From there I came to Fort Benning. So I had a little bit of leadership experience. Well, I had good leadership experience, and I had decent case agent time. So I was able to blend them two. When Cody came, he had leadership experience, but he didn't know, he couldn't investigate his way out of a wet paper bag.
Yeah.
And we
Still
had,
couldn't.
man, we had terrible conditions. Like we were working out of a double wide trailer in the back of some field of Fort Bragg. Cody was used to the red carpet being thrown out when he pulls up, right? Because he used to be somebody in the MP world. He comes back over here, and we're like, hey, man. He's like, hey, former, first sergeant Cody over there. Like, never heard of you, brother. He was a stack of case files, man. They're all late. You need to get working.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to, oh, and by the way, you're in charge of these other guys who also don't know what they're doing. So good luck, man. So, you talk about fuel of the fire and the bigger offices, Fort Hood, Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, Fort Moore, respectively now, JBLM, whatever we're calling that these days. Certain offices are just monsters. And that's the one that Cody was sent to with no experience as an agent, terrible working conditions, people that knew he didn't know. I mean, he had military police experience, but he'd been in leadership positions and things like that. But then he comes over, and then these other guys that they don't have any military police experience. So Cody's trying to learn and do a good job. They don't know what they're doing. The world's falling apart. I mean, it was terrible, man. Cody lost his marbles in there one day with me.
Not Cody. Not Cody.
Man, but he was going, oh, man. And we're talking, what was it, Cody? Like 2 double wide trailers stuck together. So like a triple wide or something. Man, Cody was going off and just venting, man. And people came up to me later and they were like, hey, man, why was that dude yelling at you? I'm like, look, man, he's just going off. And he came back and he apologized. But I mean, that was Cody's transition. Rough, man.
Well, I mean, and the thing about it is, you come from, when John, you can attest for this. Me and John, in the MP world, you got black and white leaders, and you got those guys that operate in the gray. And that's all we ever did was operate in the gray. John, you gotta admit, that is what we did. We operated in the gray area. When I transitioned over to CID, there is no gray area. it's black or white, right? And a lot of the people in that organization, they have blinders on because it is so black and white. And I think when I got there, I had this like, well, this is stupid. What are we doing this for? I mean, literally, because a lot of the shit was just stupid. And you're like, why are we doing this? And, no, he'd be like, well, because it's in the regulation. Well, what he ended up doing is that, there, especially towards the end, I'd start coming down there and he'd come to my office. He's like, look, I know it's stupid, but we got to do it. This is what, but I was like, this is just so dumb. And a lot of the people in, nothing against CID, the people of CID, they do have them blinders on and their whole personality, even in a civilian or even when they're not working, is just that straight and narrow, black and white. There's no, I mean, that office when I first got there was like no laughter. There was no anything. And I think, by time I left, I'm not saying it had anything to do with me. I mean, I think between me, Noe, and Scott Gonzalez and a couple other people, we kind of changed the culture of that office. But I mean, we were having good times and, back to having lunches together. And there was a little bit of accountability, but there's also a lot more camaraderie from that.
Yeah, and Bragg is one of the more feared offices by junior agents because just the amount of things you're exposed to, right? So think of most MOSs, they train while they're stateside, and their wartime mission is when they're deployed. Well, as a CID agent, it's a little bit reversed, but to an extent, not so much as to an extent whenever you're deployed overseas. But when you're stateside, like every day is real world, right? It's hard to get training in because there's just, crime never takes a day off. You're, how do I train a guy right now that, when we're having to respond to an actual call, you know? So a lot of it does happen on the scene and, but it's not as ideal as you want it to be. But unfortunately at the time for us, I mean, that's what we were dealt with. And, it's a fast paced and, aside from the, just the normal things like that we encountered, me and Cody had the honor of going through the COVID pandemic at the same time, which well, to start off, we were in trailers, temporary buildings, working in trailers, conducting interviews in like another building or more permanent building that was, cordoned off because it was under construction, but that's where the interview rooms were at. So you're driving halfway through post to do that, lack of space. So your leadership is in one location. You might see them once a week, twice a week, if you're lucky. And then, on top of that, once COVID hit, we moved into the new building, but then COVID hit and it's like, come to work, but don't come to work. But why are you here? But make sure you're working. I mean, it's just a lot to juggle.
Yep. I know when I retired, the company I went to go work for, I did a lot of work with NCIS and CID after I retired. But it looks like the Army has kind of adopted some of the Navy NCIS workforce structure and attempting to adopt that over to CID. Is that what you guys were seeing towards the end of your careers, and kind of what is that change that's taking place in CID?
I mean, I think they tried to bring an approach over to CID. It all happened because of the Vanessa Guillen case down in Fort Hood. But I think what they try to do is they try to make such a drastic change so fast that is
Can you explain what
really,
that change was?
they wanted to get rid of soldiers. I mean, and I really wish someone would dig in to how some of these soldiers have been treated and what's gone on in this organization since the transformation. They kept telling the soldiers, like, hey, we're going to 80-20, 80% civilians, 20% soldiers. You got basically the soldiers in that organization, like wondering, like, hey, what am I going to do? They opened up these jobs, civilians jobs. Some people could get in there and get them. Some people couldn't. And now I think it's actually going back in reverse to where now they're opening it back up to soldiers because what people don't understand, and no one can attest for this, CID is not like any other law enforcement agency in the United States. We have so much paperwork You document one thing here, you document that same thing in another system, then you document. I mean, it's just paperwork after paperwork. And I know, like when I was up here in my last office, we had a U.S. Marshal come over. Wow. Because it's a pay jump for some of those guys. He lasted about 6 months. He's like, yeah, this is not law enforcement. I'm out. It's just, and now they're going back to trying to get soldiers to stay, or they're opening back up sit-sat classes. But the transition, I mean, they tried changing some of the systems, but a lot of the stuff is going back to the old way. It's just really hard to be a law enforcement agency when you're really
Yeah,
dictated
your
by
priorities.
politicians.
Yeah, you have
So,
to.
I mean, you guys could answer this with the CID and some of those changes. It really felt like, and again, I was never in CID, so I don't know, but it really seemed like CID was not wanting to adopt some of the current technologies or practices that were maybe being done by other federal law enforcement agencies, and really didn't want to, I want to say, conform to those new methods, and were really kind of set on kind of developing their own parallel process.
Well, I think some of the things that contributed to that is you had a lot of key players at the top that were in those positions for so long. They held those positions as senior leaders in the military, and then they retired and then stayed in those billets as senior civilians. So, there was never an opportunity for the change. It kind of becomes one of those things where shut up and color, right? If you want to move up, then this is how it's going to be done. If you carry those policies or beliefs forward, it benefits you. And if it doesn't, then you're kind of a problem child and you may not progress as much. You may run into more issues. You may be the guy that no one likes or gets along with. The other thing is, the trying to change it over to another organization, or from another organization. So as you have outside people trying to come in, they're trying to change things, but in like in a law enforcement agency in your local town, their funding comes from the local town, right? Well, our funding comes from Congress. So whatever your congressman wants or woman wants, then that's what you're gonna do. So like Cody mentioned earlier, hey, there was these things, someone says, hey, this wasn't a crime and not a problem here. Well, the civilians, they're leaving, right? But for us, it wasn't the case. It's like, well, we're not restricted by budgeting in that sense. Keep digging. What is it? Why? And, so you're left with doing more than other agencies would. Or when you're trying to do these common sense things, someone brings it up that you shouldn't have done that. Now they're second guessing what you did instead of backing you up like they should, right? Because we're all different. We made different choices. And, even if your choice was wrong, even though you made a different choice, it doesn't necessarily mean it was wrong, even if it didn't have the best outcome. It was just a different choice you made. You explain it and then you move on from there. You should learn and progress, but it's not always the case. So, now the transition is happening. I think it's well underway. Like Cody said, there's, push and pull depending on where it's at in time.
So does CID still fall underneath the military police umbrella? I thought I'd heard something that it was.
No, I think it actually wanted to, I think the X award's actually supposed to come out like this month or something like that. But yeah, they're no longer going to fall under the MP court. Like, certain organizations are actually getting pulled out like here in the next few months and becoming their own entity, like at the schoolhouse and stuff. So, but it goes going back to kind of what Noah was talking about, how we have to investigate everything to the fullest, right? Even if it's a case that's not a case, that's what ends up causing a lot of these guys to burn out. Because you do have important cases, right? There are stuff out there. There are sex assaults. There are, child cases. There are deaths that are legit. But then you got, for every legit case, you might have 2 or 3 that are like, don't think so. But you're working it all the way to the fullest. And those have just as much importance. Back when me and Noe were in, they had the same timelines as that, double homicide. I mean, literally, I'm not lying. You had to work something in those cases every 10 days or whatever the case was. It didn't matter if it was something that wasn't really a case or an actual case. Am I right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's where
So
you see a
Noe,
lot of the burnout.
what was your favorite installation you were stationed at?
Man, so just real quick, my tours in the Army were not the best, right? Like you talk to Cody, you talk to some of these other guys, like these guys have seen the world, man. Not me. My stuff, my stuff was on a rotation, right? So I went to Fort Benning. I'm gonna just use the names as they come out, right? Fort Benning, Fort Moore, whatever. I went to Fort Benning for basic, Fort Huachuca, my first duty station as a fueler, then Fort Hood. Then I deployed, went CID, came back, first duty station as an agent, Fort Huachuca, then Fort Hood, then Iraq again. Like, yeah, it's like a rotation, man. Then then I came back to Fort Benning again. Then I got uh, my cushy job, if you will call it, at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And then from there, I, I had family in Georgia, so I was trying to come back to Georgia the whole time, couldn't make it. I was like, can I go to Korea? And, maybe something will open on the way back. And they're like, you might end up at Fort Bragg, man. We'll see what we can do. Well, the next day I got orders to Fort Bragg, did Fort Bragg, came back to Fort Benning and retired out. So all that to say, my favorite duty station was Fort Bragg. I had Cody, Gonzo, Sasha, just tons of people, man. I mean, so many people there. It was a big office, so many things going on. And my least favorite, which sucks because it was the place where I was always trying to come back to, was actually Fort Benning. Not at my last tour, but my middle tour. Like that was like the worst that I've been there. As I retired out of this office here, and it was good then too. But my favorite all-time office was out at Fort Bragg, just simply because of the people that I had a chance to work with there. All of the quote unquote action, if you will. That I was there, which is surprising because I was there as a geo bachelor too. I was there by myself. I had
Yeah, me too.
mate, and but these guys that I mentioned, that's not all inclusive, so I don't be out there hating. They made it all worth it, So being away from my family, that became my family. Of course, even during COVID, when I couldn't see my family, I couldn't come home. I caught the bid there once or twice, so that was my favorite, man.
I didn't know if I could have done Fort Bragg not being a geobasher. It'd probably been pretty rough.
Yeah, yeah.
Just trying to
I
balance
mean, it was
work
rough.
and
It was rough there, being alone
yeah.
without the. I remember one night. I mean, what was it, Cody? Around Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
me and Cody, man, we were working a big case, and geo bachelors. Cody had gotten up into some high tech surveillance equipment from another agency, and man, we set it up at this warehouse. And Cody, man, Cody just like watched it for hours on hours, man. During the
Yeah.
Thanksgiving break, he just sat there just
Yeah.
watching these cameras, man.
Well, I mean that one Thanksgiving you had that child case. Remember? We're supposed to be going to
Oh yeah.
Thanksgiving dinner. We're supposed to be going to
So the
Thanksgiving
warehouse
dinner.
was the warehouse one the year before then, or what?
The warehouse was the year before, and then that next one you pulled
Okay.
Thanksgiving, and that was when you had that child case.
So
Hey,
so right. So as
me and
leaders,
him.
right, we were trying to take the holiday, the major holidays off of our guys so they could enjoy with their families. So I'm like, all right, I'll take Thanksgiving. And Cody's Jill Bachelor, but we had some invites from other families, from our friends that were like, hey, come on, stop by. So I got a call and I roll out there by myself, and Cody calls me and he's like, hey, we going? I'm like, man, I'm about to go to this call real quick. And he's like, oh man, I'm about to go out there with you. And I'm like, nah, man, it's all good. And he's like, nah, I got you, man. I'm on my way. So I pull up, I'm in the house, we're pulling up in the house, and this big old Ram dually pulls up, man, and boom, this dude jumps out, right? It's like, Cody, Texas Ranger, man. Pull outside, he's got these Wrangler pants, man, just stonewashed. He's got these red wine boots on, a belt buckle as big as the truck. I'm like, oh, bro. He's like,
Sounds
what's
about
up?
right.
The best part was we're in there and we're like, hey, what do you think we should take some pictures? To go out, the camera didn't work. We're just had to do stuff with our government. Oh,
Man, you
shoot.
improvise.
It was some good
And
times, man. We had good times.
so we missed our first, we missed, that initial Thanksgiving invite because we were out on that call. But thankfully, Cody backed me up, and then, we made it out to the second one, and, we were able to spend some time with some friends and stuff and, and have a decent Thanksgiving. And, that's what it was all about is, even though you may be away from your real family, and that definitely was not the first and only time that we were away from family on a holiday, but just as an example is, we always looked out and took care of each other. And, we turned a negative thing into a negative situation overall, right? Being away from our families, going out to that call, and it just turned into something that was positive, memorable, that we can obviously now laugh at and joke about, or with us forever.
Hey, Noe, I know you just recently retired you said about a year ago from the Army. I know the transition for me has been a little difficult. We kind of talked about it last podcast too, with some expectations, and uh, that I've had that really didn't happen, or I wish I'd have known. I guess it's kind of two part. Do you have any advice for those guys that are going to retire? And then I know your son just joined the Navy, which kudos to you, and thank him for his service. But do you have any advice for the guys that are thinking about joining the military? So, a little two-part question there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me address the second part first, because I think it's the easiest. For anybody that's thinking about going to the military, whether you're coming out of high school or, you're in your adult life somewhere and you're kind of in a lull or just looking for something different or challenging, I I would definitely say that I believe it's easier as the younger you are, right? So, and whatever your age is now, you're younger today than you're going to be in next year when you say, you know what, I should have joined the Army last year when I talked about it, or the Navy or the Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or Space Force, right?
Yeah.
Any of those branches, right? No, hey, right, we all love each other. We're just, that's just how we talk amongst the branches. Do it, man, do it. You're not getting younger. It's going to be easier now than when you get older. My son joined. My brother, he joined a little bit after I did. He did about 8 years in the service as well. And even after these 20 years, man, I could probably go home, back home to Houston. My mom still lives in the same place. And I could probably see a lot of the same people that I was there with, back in the day, kicking it on the block, in better situations, but similar situations as when I left, right? Whereas I would say that mine is transitioned a lot different, right? I've got my family, I've, been around the world, however long in different locations at the expense of the government. I was able to get 2 degrees, my associates, my bachelor's. I didn't go after my master's because I was, service obligations as you get towards the end of your time. But I had all those benefits for me. Obviously my health was always taken care of. It was a positive experience. Right now being retired, I have a lot of benefits to myself and to my family, my dependents. That veteran status that can't be taken away. So it is a benefit. You're not going to regret it, right? You got to have faith in yourself and take that leap, and you'll be okay, right? There was many before us, and there's going to be many after us that come and down this path, this righteous path of defending our country and our nation. So definitely do it if it's of interest to you. It's not forever. You can, I don't know if they have the 2-year contracts up there, but it's not forever. You do a couple of years, you get those benefits, they last forever.
Yep.
On the other note, as you guys are preparing to retire from the service, it definitely is not, it is a process for yourself. It's not something you could just do from one day to the next, right? What I will, just before I forget, what is going to happen from one day to the next is the phone is going to stop ringing. So remember that, because you're going to put everybody else in front of your service or in front of your needs. And you're going to be like, I need to do this, I need to do that. And what you're going to do is neglect taking care of yourself. And then one day you're, CW3 Hernandez. And then the next day you're just, veteran Hernandez, right? retiree. Thank you for your service, sir. Move out of the way. So you definitely got to prepare for that. Personally, for myself, one of the biggest things, right, was my finances. I needed to get those all in order. And I started that out several years before I made the decision or finalized my decision to drop my retirement paperwork, paying off my debt. Where do I want to live? How do I want to get there? Do I want to work whenever I get out? And I wanted it to be an option. So I do currently work. I still work for the government. Got a decent paying job, but it is by choice. But it is because I took care of all those things that were kind of a burden as I was a young soldier in the military, right? Car payments, credit card debt, all that stuff. Pushed it out of the way, knocked it out, got, insurance right there when you retire, got me some good health insurance. And that way it was just an option, right, to work. I go to work because we're creatures of habit and we're used to doing something every day. So, I couldn't just stay home and do nothing. I literally could, but it wasn't in my nature. So, I had to get up, do some PT, go somewhere, serve a purpose, make that little extra money, and it just goes back into the pot. It gives myself, my family a better opportunity and a better lifestyle. So, at the end of the day, that's why we're going to work, right? We're leaving our family so that we can have that better lifestyle, and you want it to be an option. So definitely line those things up. Reach out to your mentors that have walked before you, and ask them what they did, what they regret, what they recommend, and take it all with stride and apply it. Don't just go in there blind.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
I guarantee you that next day the phone is not gonna ring.
Yep.
you're right.
Right,
It's not gonna rain.
right, John? That phone stops ringing, man.
But then on what you were saying too is, and I know you experienced this too, is find you a job that you're happy at. I know you experienced that right from the get go, because you kind of have that I need to work mentality, but you got to find that right fit too. And I think a lot of times we just jump into stuff and like you experienced it, and now I think you're at a pretty good job now to where you enjoy it. We talk every day, so I know you do.
Yeah. So, when I got out, before I got out, I had a job offer from a company that rhymes with Slamazon, and I'm a fan, right? I'm a fan. They get good, a good salary, good benefits, right? It wasn't too far, you know, started their corporate ladder with all their training and stuff, man. But man, once I got down boots on the ground, man, it was not nice, man. It was rough. I mean, that's corporate America, right? They're all about the mighty dollar, rightfully so, right? That's what makes their wheels turn. But it just was not for me at that time. I was seeing my family less, and I'm like, you know what? I left the service so that I could be with my family, and now I'm seeing them less. Like, but again, it was an option. I had that walkaway power. And one day before my shift, unfortunately to them, but of course, I'm sure they kind of, well, I don't know that they saw the writing on the wall, but it wasn't the first time that they saw the writing that I left on the wall for them. I said, hey, man, I need work-life balance. And unfortunately, this isn't working for me. I appreciate the opportunity. And I walked away from it. I had a decent sized bonus that they had started me out with, which, again, I didn't need, but it was there. I had it off to the side. I just sent it all back to them. And, we were actually going into the holidays right about close to this time frame last year. And I just went back to the drawing board, man. I started looking for other opportunities, and then, things opened up, in my favor. And so, I've been happy where I'm at for the last few months. And it definitely works out to my strengths, right? From my leadership experience, my work experience. And it also happens to be convenient to, my home, right? So the work-life balance is easy. And that's what I enjoy now as a retiree, and I don't have my hat. It's over here. I go grab it in a little bit, but I got the veteran hat. I wear it with pride, and, I leave it on my dashboard.
Awesome. That's great.
I think we're gonna wrap this thing up here, Noah. But I do gotta congratulate you. This guy went from being single to mingle to having a choke chain around his neck now. So hey, congratulations on your engagement. It's kind of shocking to me that he wasn't single to mingle no longer, but Yeah, he's such a come on, D. Someone had to snatch his life. So.
Hey man, she, and I did meet somebody very special to me. I love her very much. Definitely, heaven sent. But she's got to stay on her A game. We were out at the store and your gentleman walked by me. He's like, "Hey man, I like the goatee," and I'm like, "Player,
yeah, whoa, man.
this ain't age. Ain't no reason to go home alone. So she's got to stay on it too.
Stay on her toes. But no, hey man, and I just want to tell you, thank you for one having such an impact on me too. Probably the last 8-10 years or whatever the case may be, and he absolutely stays in contact with me, probably 3-4 times a week, and he's helped me out through the retirement process. Anything I've needed or asked him help on, that dude has jumped on it. So hey, big thanks, man. That's what we're here for, to help each other. So,
Yeah, man, and and if you're doing it right throughout the process, your people will seek you out. So, me and Cody, we served how long has it been now, Cody? Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Since Bragg, and but he reaches out to me, I reach out to him. And there's others, from throughout my career that still reach out and seek that guidance. And that just, it's good, right? Because I do the same. I reach out to other people as well. And that just lets you know, like, hey, you're doing it right. So, a lot of times we're down on ourselves, but we're our own worst critics. But, don't be so hard on yourselves. You're doing the right thing. We can always be better, but we're not trying to be worse,
Yep. And that's kind of the point of this podcast here, is to create an environment where the community can kind of stay connected and we can, reminisce, share stories, and just kind of hang out. So really appreciate you joining the show today. Noe, I think it was great. Got to hear your story. Really appreciate it. And that goes back to like how we started off the episode. If you've got a story that you'd like to share, whether you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you just like to email your story, whether it's a video or write your experience to us, we can share it here on the podcast. Anything that you'd like to kind of close out with, Cody?
Yeah, just one quick thing here. Anybody out here in the Waynesville, Fort Leonard Wood area, there was a gentleman that passed away, sergeant retired. His name's James Patrick McKenzie. He was 65, living in Missouri. He has limited family, and then a lot of them's too frail to travel. His funeral service will be held at 12:30 on Tuesday. But if any veterans want to go out and support that gentleman, I know this is a veteran heavy community, and a lot of times they do that. Hey, it's on Facebook. Look him up and make your way out there Tuesday to support that guy. And then just remember, if you need somebody to talk to, reach out, right? We got 3 great people here that are always willing to listen and pass on advice or whatever the case may be. Reach out to us so you can get help, and then we'll post some numbers at the end, and you can always reach out to professionals. All
right. Thanks everyone for joining. Till next time.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.